Welcome to House of Horrors, where true stories and unexplained events come alive. From the silent deserts of New Mexico, abandoned towns, and forgotten roads, these are real horror cases that still have no answers. Tonight's story is one of them. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and what time it is there right now. Turn off the lights. Turn up the volume. And step inside the House of Horrors, New Mexico, at night. Empty highways stretch for miles, with nothing but desert and darkness around you. Some roads are quiet. Some roads are lonely. But some are alive. Tonight, you'll hear 4 real, unexplained encounters on these highways. 4 drivers, each facing something that shouldn't exist. Something that watches, waits, and sometimes follows. From ghostly figures standing in the middle of the road, to lights that move without a source, to shadows that seem to mirror your every move, the Midnight Highway Hitchhiker. I've been driving freight trucks through New Mexico for almost a decade now. I know these highways better than most locals. Every curve, every stretch where deer like to cross, every lonely desert road where cell signal fades into nothing. Some nights, the quiet is so complete, it feels like the world has gone dead. And some nights, that quiet isn't empty. This happened about 2 years ago, late October. I was making a delivery from Albuquerque to Clovis. The route takes me along a particularly desolate stretch of Highway 60, east of Magdalena. It's a long, straight road through high desert. Open plains on one side, low rolling hills on the other. Sparse trees, sagebrush, the occasional abandoned fence. By the time I passed the last small town, the sun had set completely. The sky was deep blue, almost black, dotted with stars that seemed sharper than usual. No moon at night. Just the glow of my headlights cutting through the darkness. I had been driving for over 2 hours by then. The radio was playing softly, classic rock station, songs that I've memorized over the years. My hands were steady on the wheel. Coffee in the cup holder. Temperature inside the cab comfortable. Everything normal. Until I saw her. At first, I thought it was a hitchhiker. A woman, standing on the shoulder. Late 20s, long dark coat. Hair loose, swinging slightly in the desert wind. Barely moving. Almost frozen in place. I slowed down. Rolled my window halfway. The hum of the engine seemed louder in the stillness. I called out, "Hey, do you need a ride?" No response. I blinked. Looked again. She was standing in exactly the same spot. Perfect posture. Arms at her sides. I hesitated. Something about her didn't feel right. Maybe I'd driven too long without a break. Maybe fatigue was playing tricks on me. But I slowed to a stop anyway. Pulled off gently to the shoulder. Kept my headlights angled slightly away so I wouldn't blind her. The desert was completely silent. No wind. No animals. Even the distant hum of highway traffic was gone. I grabbed my flashlight. Planned to step out and check on her. That's when I realized. She was gone. Completely. No footprints in the sand. No disturbed sagebrush. Nothing. I froze. The desert was still. The silence, heavier now. I looked up and down the stretch of highway behind me. Nothing. Nothing but the road disappearing into the darkness. My pulse quickened. I told myself it was a hallucination. Tired eyes playing tricks. Maybe a mirage caused by the heat of the asphalt cooling. I climbed back into the cab, keeping the door closed. My hands were trembling. I tried to start the engine calmly. I told myself to breathe, to keep focused. A few minutes passed. The headlights of another vehicle appeared in the distance. Dim at first, then growing brighter. I relaxed slightly. Maybe it was a car following behind. Maybe the woman had simply walked away toward that vehicle. But as I looked up again, there she was. Standing in the middle of the lane behind me. Same posture. Same dark coat. Hair wet and clinging to her face. Arms at her sides. She was staring directly at me through the rearview mirror. My heart stopped. Completely stopped for a few seconds. The hairs on the back of my neck stood straight. I didn't think. I didn't process. I just reacted. I slammed the door shut. Foot slammed on the accelerator. Swerved slightly around where I thought she had been. I glanced again in the mirror. Nothing. The lane was empty. No figure. No shadow. No movement in the sagebrush. I breathed heavily. Tried to convince myself it had been a trick of the headlights. Or maybe my mind playing games. But deep down, I knew it wasn't imagination. The highway stretched on endlessly. Dark and empty. I focused on the road ahead. Kept my hands tight on the wheel. Eyes darting constantly to the rearview mirror. About 10 minutes later, I saw movement again. Not a figure on the road this time. But shadows, flickering in my peripheral vision. The sagebrush seemed to shift unnaturally. Like something was moving just beyond my headlights. I slowed slightly. Tried to get a better look. Nothing concrete. Only the feeling of being watched. I increased my speed. The feeling followed me. A presence just beyond the light. Something pacing me silently. I tried calling dispatch. No signal. The highway stretches through so much open desert, cell towers are non-existent. I focused on the road. Kept my eyes forward. Every muscle tense. And then, headlights again. Directly behind me. Bright, blinding. But not a vehicle I could identify. No sound of an engine. Just the lights, following my truck. I slowed slightly. The lights slowed. I sped up. The lights accelerated. I realized then, whatever it was not human. I floored the accelerator. Squealed around a curve. My tires gripping the asphalt. My heart hammering in my chest. Finally, instinct took over. I took the next exit. Immediately. Slid onto the shoulder. The lights vanished. No gradual fade. No distance. Just gone. I sat on the shoulder, shaking. Heart racing. Hands trembling on the wheel. For 10 minutes, I didn't move. Didn't breathe too loudly. Just stared into the desert. When I finally continued driving, I stayed as fast as possible. Eyes constantly scanning mirrors. Every shadow. Every flicker of light. Weeks later, I asked other truckers about that stretch of Highway 60. 2 had seen something similar. Different nights. Different vehicles. But the same stretch. A lone woman appearing in the road. Disappearing without a trace. I never stopped there at night again. I avoid that section entirely after sunset. Sometimes, when I'm driving long stretches through the desert, I swear I feel eyes on me. In the mirror. At the corner of the headlights. Waiting. Watching. I don't know who she is. I don't know why she appears. And I've long since stopped trying to figure it out. The desert keeps its secrets. And some nights, those secrets walk into the road. Right in front of you. I've been driving long routes through New Mexico for over a decade. Some stretches of road are familiar, almost comforting. Others feel like they belong to a different world entirely. High desert roads, late at night, with no towns, no lights, nothing but open land and your headlights cutting through the darkness. This happened about 2 years ago. Late October. I was making a delivery from Albuquerque to Roswell, a route I knew well. By the time I left Albuquerque, the sun had long since set. The sky was deep black, punctuated with stars so sharp they almost hurt your eyes. No moon at night. Just the headlights of my truck and the faint glow of distant towns. The highway I was on cuts through what I think of as true desert country. Flat plains. Occasional mesas rising in the distance. Sparse desert scrub and low trees. The kind of terrain where sound doesn't travel far. but shadows can seem to move. I had been driving for hours. Music played softly in the cab. Truck humming under me. Coffee in the cup holder. I felt alert, but there's a certain fatigue that creeps in after night driving. A sense that your mind is awake, but the world around you is too quiet. It was then I saw her. At first, I thought it was a hitchhiker. A woman standing on the side of the highway. Dark coat. Long hair blowing slightly in the desert wind. Barefoot. Arms at her sides. She didn't move. She didn't flinch as I approached. I slowed. I kept my distance. Rolled down the window a little. "Hey, you need a ride?" I called. No response. I blinked. Looked again. She was just there. Not stepping forward. Not stepping back. Perfectly still. Something about her didn't feel right. I told myself it was just fatigue. Maybe the long stretch of empty road was messing with my mind. But even as I told myself that, I knew it wasn't. I slowed to a stop. Pulled onto the shoulder. Kept the headlights angled so I didn't blind her. The desert was completely silent. No wind. No animals. No other cars. Only the quiet hum of my truck. I grabbed my flashlight. Planned to step out and approach her. But before I could move, she was gone. Completely. No footprints. No disturbed sand. Nothing. I froze. The desert felt heavier. Almost like it was watching me. I scanned the highway ahead and behind. Empty. Nothing. I climbed back into the cab. Heart racing. Hands shaking. I tried to convince myself it was a hallucination. A trick of the headlights. Fatigue playing tricks. Maybe a mirage in the desert heat. I pulled back onto the road, cautiously. Tense. Eyes constantly scanning mirrors and shoulders. Then I saw her again. Standing in the middle of the lane behind me. Exactly where she hadn't been before. Same dark coat. Bare feet. Hair wet and clinging to her face. Arms at her sides. My pulse stopped completely. I couldn't think. I couldn't react. The truck felt like it weighed a ton in my hands. I slammed the door shut. Foot on the accelerator. Swerved slightly to avoid her, even though she seemed unreal. The desert road stretched endlessly in front of me, but every movement I made, she mirrored. Every lane change. Every small adjustment. I glanced in the mirrors. Empty. I tried calling dispatch. No signal. Cell towers don't cover this part of the desert. I was completely alone. The lights of her eyes, if they could be called that, reflected the moonlight. But there was no moon. Only her gaze, locked on me through the rearview mirror. Panic surged. I floored the accelerator. The strange, silent presence followed. Not in a physical sense. Not bound by logic. But I could feel it. The desert wasn't empty anymore. It was alive with her. I veered off onto a gravel turnout. Stopped. Trembling. Shaking. The presence vanished instantly. No sound. No movement. Nothing. I sat for a long time, staring into the darkness. Heart hammering. Hands gripping the wheel. Eyes scanning the horizon. Eventually, I continued driving. Every mile, every curve, I scanned the shadows, the roadside, the mirror. Half expecting her to appear again. Weeks later, I asked a couple of long-haul drivers about that section of desert highway. 2 reported similar experiences. Different nights. Different vehicles. But always the same woman. Same posture. Same disappearance. I've avoided that road after dark ever since. Even during the day, I can't shake the memory. The feeling of being watched. The thought of her standing there, just beyond reach. Sometimes, when I drive long desert stretches alone, I swear I feel her presence again. In the mirrors. In the corner of my headlights. Waiting. watching. I don't know who she is. I don't know why she appears. All I know, she is real. And she waits on those lonely desert roads, always, silently, ready to step into the light of your headlights. The Pecos Highway Phantom Truck. I've been driving trucks through New Mexico for over a decade. Mostly commercial hauls, long stretches of highway at night, isolated roads where the desert and mountains meet in ways that can feel unreal. I've seen strange weather, wildlife in odd places, things that make you question your own senses. But nothing prepared me for what I encountered one October night on the Pecos Highway. It was a Tuesday. I was running a route from Roswell to Santa Fe, a familiar stretch I'd driven dozens of times. By the time I left Roswell, the sun had long since set. The highway was mostly empty. No traffic, no towns, no lights for miles. Just asphalt stretching straight across the desert, flanked by low scrub and scattered piñon trees. The wind was calm that night, which is rare out here. A still night in New Mexico has a way of amplifying everything, the smallest sounds, the faintest movements. I had maybe 100 miles to go. Music played softly on the radio. Truck humming under me. Coffee sitting beside me. I felt alert, but there's a certain edge to driving alone at night through this country. Even when you know the road like the back of your hand, something about the isolation keeps you tense. It started like any other night. Empty road. Headlights cutting through the darkness. The occasional coyote crossing or a herd of deer grazing near the shoulder. I kept a steady pace. Checked mirrors. Focused on the highway. Then I saw it. At first, I thought it was another truck. Far ahead. Headlights bright, glaring. I assumed a semi was on the same route. But as I got closer, something didn't feel right. The lights weren't aligned like a truck's normally are. They weren't moving properly. I slowed slightly. Kept a safe distance. As I got even closer, I realized it wasn't a truck I recognized. Not a semi. Not a pickup. It was old. Rusted. Cab battered. Windows dark. No license plate. No reflective markings. It just sat there on the road. I blinked. Rubbing my eyes. The desert can play tricks at night. Long stretches of road can create illusions. But this felt wrong. I slowed even more. I flipped on my high beams for a better look. No response. No movement. Then it happened. It moved toward me. Not fast. Not in a normal way. Almost gliding. As I braked, it mirrored me. I slowed more, it slowed. I sped up, it sped up. I froze, heart pounding. I tried the mirrors. Empty. No one behind me. I tried calling dispatch. No signal. Panic started to set in. I veered slightly to the shoulder. The truck mirrored me. I pulled over completely. Stopped. Nothing. Then I realized, there was someone in the cab. A shadow. Dark, human-shaped. But I couldn't make out a face. It didn't move its hands. Didn't touch the wheel. It just sat there, watching. I gripped the steering wheel. Sweat on my forehead. I thought about stepping out. But the desert was silent. Too silent. I floored the accelerator. The truck stayed beside me. Mirrored my every movement. I swerved left. It swerved with me. I tried braking again. It slowed too, then I saw it, the shadow turned its head slightly. Just enough that I could feel its gaze. I don't think it blinked. I don't think it even had eyes. But it was looking at me. I panicked fully. Foot on the gas. Heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished. No skid marks. No sound. Nothing. I pulled over at the next turnout, shaking, hands trembling. Sat in the cab for nearly an hour. Eyes darting to every mirror. Every shadow. Finally, I forced myself to continue. The rest of the trip to Santa Fe was uneventful. But the image of that cab, empty yet occupied, haunted me. Every stretch of empty highway, every dark stretch of desert, I could see it again in my mind. Weeks later, I talked to another long-haul driver about that stretch of highway. He told me he'd seen the same thing about 20 years ago. Same highway. Same old truck. Empty cab, shadowed driver. Mirrored his every movement. Disappeared without a trace. I've avoided that section of the Pecos Highway at night ever since. Even during the day, passing that stretch feels wrong. Like the desert itself is holding its breath. I don't know what it is. A spirit? A curse? Something from the desert itself, ancient and watching? All I know, it's real. And it waits, silently, for anyone driving alone at night. The I-40 Desert Highway lights. I've driven I-40 across New Mexico more times than I can count. Long stretches of asphalt cutting through desert and scrubland, the occasional mesa or butte in the distance, nothing but open sky above. It's a road you get to know well if you're a trucker. You learn the dips, the curves, the few gas stations, the small towns that appear suddenly and disappear just as fast. But one night, late in October, I encountered something I still can't explain. I had left Albuquerque around 11 p.m. The highway was empty. Completely empty. No cars ahead, no cars behind. Just the hum of my rig and the occasional hiss of wind along the trailer. The moon had set, leaving only the stars overhead. I kept my headlights on, but even with the high beams, the desert stretched into darkness beyond the edges of the asphalt. I had been driving for nearly 2 hours when I noticed something unusual up ahead. At first, I thought it was another truck, far off in the distance. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't moving like a normal vehicle. The lights flickered strangely, almost like they were pulsing. Red and white lights alternated in patterns that didn't make sense, no turn signals, no brake lights, nothing typical. I slowed, keeping a careful distance. The closer I got, the stranger it became. The lights seemed to float above the highway, just above the asphalt. Not attached to a vehicle. Not hovering high in the sky. Just floating there, moving slowly, almost lazily, along the highway. I rubbed my eyes. Maybe fatigue. Maybe long stretches of road playing tricks. But the lights. They were too consistent. Too deliberate. I slowed further, coming nearly to a stop. As I did, the lights reacted. They pulsed faster, almost in rhythm with my braking. I reached for my CB radio. "Anyone out there?" I called. Static. Nothing. I tried my phone. No signal. The lights shifted. Not erratically, but deliberately. They moved to match my lane. I thought I saw a faint outline beneath them, dark, shadowy, humanoid. But every time I focused, it vanished. Panic set in. My heart raced. Hands shaking on the wheel. I had the presence of mind to remember what my father, a trucker himself, used to say, "Never stop on the I-40 desert at night unless you have to." I floored the accelerator. The lights mirrored me. Flickered faster. Almost playful. I swerved slightly to the right shoulder. The lights swerved with me. I slammed the truck into gear and sped up. The lights rose slightly, then descended, keeping pace. I couldn't see a cab, a trailer, or a body, nothing human. Yet I could feel its presence. Watching. Calculating. Waiting. For miles, this continued. I-40 stretched endlessly ahead, dark and deserted. Every minor hill or curve amplified the tension. Every shadow along the roadside seemed alive. I kept glancing in my mirrors, expecting it to appear behind me. But nothing. Finally, near a turnout marked by old, cracked mile markers, I noticed something new. The lights were gone. Completely vanished. No glow, no shadow, no flicker. I stopped briefly at the turnout, breathing heavily. The highway was silent. Too silent. I scanned the horizon. No vehicles. No lights. Just desert scrub, mesas, and stars. I continued cautiously, checking the mirrors obsessively. By the time I reached Santa Rosa, my heart rate had normalized slightly. But my hands were still shaking. The desert highway had left its mark. Weeks later, I mentioned the encounter at a truck stop. An older driver, a man in his 60s who'd been hauling across the Southwest for decades, nodded knowingly. "You saw the highway lights," he said simply. He told me he'd seen them multiple times over the years. Always on the I-40 desert stretch between Albuquerque and Tucumcari. No vehicle attached. Just lights moving along the asphalt. Some believe it's the spirits of drivers lost in accidents long ago. Others say it's a warning, strange energy embedded in the desert by something ancient. Whatever it is, it's real. I've driven I-40 since that night. Never at the same hour. Never alone. And I always keep my lights bright and my eyes constantly scanning. Because once you've seen the I-40 desert highway lights, you know the desert is watching. And sometimes, it moves in ways that make no sense. So guys, thanks for watching House of Horrors. If you enjoyed this descent into darkness, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell, so you never miss another nightmare. Signing off.